Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to the Words, Women, and Wisdom radio show. The show that is bringing to you amazing women who are doing fantastic things in the world that have risen from tragedy to triumph or chaos to confidence and are bringing to life their story and bringing that in and knitting it with their purpose. So, this is a bi weekly show spotlighting incredible women. And I'm so delighted today to be joined by my beautiful guest, Kerri Hummingbird. Hello, Kerri. Are you on the line there?
I am. Thank you so much for having me. It's awesome.
You are very welcome. So, Kerri is the author of this amazing new book, The Second Wave, Transcending the Human Drama. And I am really enjoying reading this book. It's a really interesting book. I put a couple of quotes up on my Facebook page already, so be sure to hop over there and check these out. So Kerri is a really interesting soul. She's the founder of the Skills Not Pills movement. She's also the host of the Soul Nectar show. Ooh, that sounds so juicy. We're going to dive into that in just a moment. So Kerri inspires people to live their lives wide awake, with an authenticity, with passion and purpose, and positively impacts others. She catalyzes, as she describes it, catalyzes mind shifts that transform life challenges into gifts of wisdom. And her Reinvent Yourself programs, which we'll probably touch on later as well, for individual and group mentoring, are a key piece of the work that she does. And she's someone I'll let her tell her own story. But basically, there is a ton of history here. 20 years of marriage that caused her to eventually take a deep look and take a leap of faith in herself. And as a soul guide with this book, she's channeling. She's an embodiment of White Eagle, who is an ascended master specializing in rainbow light activation of human DNA. So her work is really to serve as a social activist, a leader, a philanthropist, and she's been doing this now for 3 decades. So she is the best-selling author of The Second Wave, Transcending Human Drama, and also an award-winning best-selling book as well, Awakening to Me, One Woman's Journey to Self-Love, which was the first book and describes the early years of a spiritual awakening. So today we're going to talk with Kerri, and she's going to be sharing on the topic of discovering the lives of your thumbprint journey. So this is a really intriguing topic. So welcome, Kerri.
Hey, thank you for having me. I'm really glad to be here. I was like, wow, that's a really long introduction.
Well, I think a lot of times I try to have a variety of guests with different focus areas. So for some of my more corporate listeners, they're going to be intrigued because you're doing something that's a little bit outside of the scope of typical corporate. I'm in Canada, you're in America, but in the corporate arena. So I've had guests that have been psychologists, psychiatrists, speakers, speaker coaches, opera singers. It's been a really wide variety because what I want to do is emphasize the fact that no matter where you are at in your life, no matter what your circumstances are, what your background is, what your focus is, what your career is, there are women out there who have transcended through tragedy and with strength and resilience and courage and hope have risen to new levels of success. And the fact that you can do this too, no matter where you are in your journey. So tell me how your journey got started, Kerri.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I was in corporate. That's where I started.
Yeah.
In my work business, my work life, I was a technical writer in Silicon Valley for startup companies that had technology. And I did that for 20 years. It's a really successful independent entrepreneur business. And during the whole time I was doing that, I also had another relationship. I had a marriage from the time I was, a relationship I had from the time I was 22. And then we also got married and had children. And like often happens, that first relationship really mirrored to me some of the dynamics of my inner matrix from my early childhood. And that was the subject of a lot of psychotherapy sessions, sitting on the couch, sorting out my problems. So like, to the external world in Silicon Valley at the time, people that knew me at work, or people that knew me in a startup environment or things like that, or I was also like leading the Silicon Valley chapter of the STC, which is the Society of Technical Communication. So I was very professionally active. Anybody that would have known me would have said, she's totally happy, she's got a great marriage, everything's fine. And not know that on the backside, I was going to psychotherapy every single week for like decades, trying to sort me out. And it was really the birth of my first child that triggered a lot of deep darkness. And it was bringing up for me things that were in my inner matrix, my psychology, from my 0 to 5 time, which was super tumultuous. My natural father and my mother were a match until they had a kid, and then not so much. Like, his lifestyle back in the 60s was maybe not compatible with having a family and raising children. And he was a fun-loving guy, so to speak, and he had some addictions and things like that. And so my mom took me away from him, but she went right from the frying pan into the fire with my first stepfather. He was a violent drunk. So, some of my first memories actually being hit, on the head by him, like him being upset because I touched his guitar. He left the room. I was like 2. He told me not to touch it. So what did I do? I'm 2. I reached my hand up on top of the bed to touch it because I was fascinated by this thing that made music. And he came immediately back in, all 6'3" of him, and just swatted the heck out of me. And that's my first memory. And there were lots of other things that happened at that time that I have little glimpses of, or little remembrances of, but it's very, it really set the foundation of my questions about relationship. Because at 5, I met my stepfather, who was a beautiful human being, just a wonderful old soul master teacher, just unconditional love, really great teacher and guide. And for the rest of my life, until a couple years ago when he passed away, he was my rock. Like, he was my teacher, my guide, my parent, my father, like, just really great. So I had probably one of the best dads, but I had this early experience of having like really bad stuff, right? So I always had this crack in my foundation, like, what is relationship? And then what is my self-worth? And am I worth it? And, and my mother has her own issues, so a lot of the same dynamics many women face with their mothers, the same push-pull, the same crazy dynamics with, why can't my mom just support me and cheerlead me and be excited for me? I experienced all those things too. So, there's a lot of stuff to talk about in psychotherapy on a couch for 20 years.
Well, we have about an hour, so
yeah, we're not going to go into all that story.
No, I think it's important to help listeners and audience members understand where you're coming from, because a lot of times, particularly in the corporate world, we see these, on the outside they're perfect people, and inside they have this tremendous sadness happening, and it's sort of glossed over on the front, and that's all people see. I love this description. I'm going to quote this, if that's okay. I have a crack in my foundation. That's so true. I mean, all the deep dive work that I've been doing over the past 20 years now, myself too, has really showcased how some of those very early memories are the ones that make the biggest impact. I mean, this sounds so crazy, but I remember, I think I was about 4 or 5. There are other memories, but this one in particular, I had spent hours doing a beautiful picture of an art project of a goat in a pasture. And I thought it was amazing. I was so proud of it. And I took it to my dad, and he was like, oh, that's not very good. And I was just crushed. And I remember going to my mom, I was bawling, and she put 3 little gold stars on the bottom, and we spent quite a bit of time licking and positioning these stars, and she's saying, no, it's fabulous, it's amazing, I'm giving you 3 stars. But my dad didn't like it, And that, is just one example of things that I can reflect back on now. And I think, oh, why did I let that bug me for so long? But you do.
Because we're children and we're super sensitive and our hearts are wide open and we really care what other people think. Like that, our parents are our whole world. Like we're so dependent on them.
Yeah.
So oftentimes what I found was that, and I work with clients now about this, is that when you shift into being a parent yourself, all the stuff from your early childhood comes up for you to process, because you're like, wait a second, who's taking care of me? Like that little voice gets triggered.
Yeah.
And, you're taking better care of this baby than I got taken care of, like all those things start to happen. And it, it unfolds over time, of course, but I had postpartum depression, like as soon as I had my baby. And it was scary. Like I saw a big black hole in the middle of the shower floor one morning and I thought, I think I need to get some help because I'm seeing a black hole. This is not good. I'm totally sober. And there's like this black hole in the middle of the floor and that's not good. So I would say that there's also some paradigms, and I see it happen in corporate too, where women in particular are shamed for having emotion.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't like that, because one of the things I learned on my journey is that emotions are a superpower. Like actually your ability to feel, and your ability to feel a whole range, like the expansiveness of feeling from like grief all the way to joy. Like when you can feel, like the more of that range you can really embody and feel and let pass through you, your empathy skills are off the Richter. And then when you have empathy, you don't need to think. You feel it, it, because you can sense it and feel it. And then you can ask appropriate questions to confirm it. But you already know, and that's the power a woman has. So I hate to see that squashed in corporate because of these, masculine structures that have been formed.
Mm-hmm.
I like to see women really like stop, like let go of that I'm ashamed of my emotions game, and I need to go like fix myself now in psychotherapy, because that was a large part of the thing I was being told too, is you don't really, you're like too emotional, or you're too much, or you're too big, or you're too this, you're too that. For who?
Exactly. I had the same discussion last week. I was at a book club launch. So my book, Words, Women, and Wisdom, The Modern Art of Confident Conversations. I was doing a reading from the book, and I picked out, based on the audience in the book club, I picked out 3 different topics to just speak to. I mean, there's 40 different words in the book. So I picked out about 3 concepts. And one of them was actually about tears in the workplace, and how that can be disempowering as a leader, because a lot of times your peers around you are men and they don't know how to handle it if a woman suddenly starts to tear up in the middle of a meeting. So there was different strategies that are in the book and things that we can do to offset that. But just recognizing that there is such a power, as you said, in the competencies that women bring to the table and how we lead in different ways than our male counterparts do. But it's about knowing when to and how much to share, so that you're not gushing all over people and they don't know what to do. They're embarrassed and it's awkward, but they get it, that this is something that's really impactful for you. It's really important and it's touching your soul. And if they bring their soul to work too, then what a beautiful outcome is going to be created from that.
Yeah, the beautiful outcome is a heart engaged person that's leading in the company to create other heart engaged people, making decisions from that place rather than from bean counting and other things that, I don't know. I have a different
heart, mind, and gut.
Yeah.
So, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because I feel like if we were making more decisions in corporate from a heart-centered space, rather than from a profit and, hard, cold, calculating space,
right,
we'd be making decisions that have a better impact on people and a better impact on animals and the planet.
Yeah. Well, with your indigenous heritage, I mean, you certainly are, and in your shamanic journeys, you certainly are well connected to the earth, the 4 winds principles. You're a practitioner of 4 winds. I'm not sure whether you call it a coaching program or a shamanic program. What's the Four
Well,
Winds program about?
The Four Winds Life Body School is a training program in energy medicine. And it's derived from indigenous teachings and wisdom from South America. And it was created by Alberto Vialdo, who has several books that are really well regarded, Shaman Healer, Sage being one of those. So he actually traveled, he was one of those really highly regarded medical people, researchers. And then the pharmaceutical companies sent him down to South America to find out about the plants. And he went to go find a shaman, and nobody would confess to being a shaman because they knew why he was there. So he eventually found out that he had been guided for a couple years by an actual shaman that just wasn't telling him I'm a shaman, because he knew what Alberto wanted for these pharmaceutical companies. He wasn't going to give it to him.
Yeah.
Until he knew his heart melted and he was not in it for that anymore. And then he relinquished his whole career in the Western ideology and just gave it up because there was a greater path to follow, and that was the indigenous wisdom. So it's a more powerful path, and you're not going to get anywhere with it until your heart's in the right place. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, because nature can, it's that energy of purity, right? So when you made the switch from corporate into being more connected with your indigenous roots and starting to work, do work as a shaman and step into, going to Peru and different trips that you've been on to get centered and grounded and connect with the earth in a different way, did your friends just think you'd lost it? Like, talk to me about that process.
I probably, but they wouldn't tell me, because you see the red hair, they're like afraid. So what happened was I walked out of my former marriage like 8 years ago. I simultaneously started changing careers, but that happened about 6 months after I walked out. I said, okay, I'm done with this. I quit psychotherapy. I said, forget it. I'm just going to be bad. If I can't be fixed after 20 years, it's not going to work. It's not going to happen. I just stuck with this. So, and then about 6 months later, I found a teacher who was a spiritual guide and who started teaching me how to walk the beauty way, how to work with earth spirituality and to have a path. And so I started studying that. And then I simultaneously found out about the Four Winds Light Body School and about Heather Ashamara, who was local, that was teaching Warrior Goddess, which is Toltec wisdom. Don Miguel Ruiz was her mentor. He wrote the Four Agreements.
Yep.
So, I started finding out about all this ancient wisdom. I'm like, what's going on with this? And I didn't even know this was here. And I had like a healing. I had a healing, and after 45 minutes, I was different. And that's the moment I decided. I was like, okay, I'm different after 45 minutes. I'm doing this. I don't care what it is. I'm doing this. And so I started training. So within pretty short amount of time, I just plunged all the way in, and I had an identity crisis at the time because, I left my former husband. I was on the fallouts with my parents because I'm pursuing this crazy energy medicine, and they're like, what are you doing? Like, we don't even know who you are. You walked out of your marriage, you did all this crazy behavior, and now you're like doing this. And I thought, I needed to claim something for myself to get myself to a healthy space. And the thing that came to me was a drum journey meditation. I had this drum journey meditation. I was manifesting this house that I live in right now. It was under contract with somebody else, and they had been going back and forth. So there was no way I was going to get it, except I did, because I did a drum journey meditation.
Yeah.
And I saw myself in the house, and I was like, this is my house. I know it. And at the end of the meditation, which I was totally making up the whole thing. I was making the whole thing up in my head. Like, my grandparents came in who were deceased, and they're like, this is really lovely. And my grandmother was like, I love this pantry, and like all this stuff I'm making up in my brain. And at the end of the meditation, in the back window of the kitchen, as I'm in this house in my meditation, a rainbow light hummingbird just like floated up in the window. And I'm like, whoa, because I didn't make that happen. I didn't, and it was like time stopped and expanded, and the rainbow light and the hummingbird, and I knew it was a spirit message. I hadn't had very many of those at that point. And I thought, okay, that's a message for me. And I went and looked up hummingbird, and I was like, that's me. That's who I am. So I changed my name, and And pretty soon I changed it on LinkedIn.
Ah,
I just, you know what? I dove off, Yvonne, because I was like, forget. At that point, I'd had my healing session and I'd had many other healings. And I knew that whatever everybody in the Western world thought was not true.
yeah.
Like
What
I
was
knew it
the
in my soul that it wasn't true.
which modality did you go through with your healing? I mean, I'm Reiki trained, but
Yeah, so this is shamanic healing. So this is working with the elements, working with the animal allies,
okay.
working with these really long lineages that are unbroken on the earth that have maintained this medicine, and the ancestors of these lineages are beyond the veil. So every time every time I open a ceremony and say, please come, Karo shamans. Like there's Karo ancestors in the room and everybody can feel it who's sensitive. They go like, ooh, the room's full. Like there's help here. And, so I started working with these long indigenous lineages that are unbroken and they guide my work. They guide me etherically in the work. So it's
Beautiful,
wonderful.
beautiful.
Yeah.
I remember when I was I was working with my Reiki master, um, and she was helping me because my shoulder was sore. And this is going back a number of years now, and it turns out that I was hanging on to this belief that I had that was not going to happen and it was irrelevant anymore. Um, and we'd been working on that together, and the pain was gradually dissipating. And then she was talking at the very end of the session about the fact that she had a Reiki training class coming up, and literally my hands started buzzing. And at the time I was like, oh, what's going on? I think I'm supposed to be there because I'm vibrating when you're
Yeah,
talking
my hands
about
are
it.
vibrating.
Yeah. So that again was the beginning for me of opening up a whole new world. I mean, a lot of my focus has been on psychology and mindset and brain work, and Havekar and Warrior Camp, and Satyam Raja coming in and doing elements of that, and that kind of mind work, not so much on personal energy, but I was also very intrigued to be stepping into energetic resonance, and was working with my coach on that topic as well, because I'd had some feedback saying, you're coming across as aggressive, not assertive, and I didn't like that description. So I was ready to step into something different and, be confident, but do it in an authentic way that had a much better communication, and reciprocity was involved, and the energy of flow was different. So
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
it's funny. I
amazing how
mean,
energy work is totally different than thinking about it.
yes, yeah. So
Yeah, those
that was
mind
my
tunnels are dangerous.
so that was my doorway into
Yeah.
crystals and
Oh, I
vibration
love
sprays
crystals.
and healing and Reiki. And my son has been having some medical challenges over the past few months, medical and behavioral. And for the longest time, he was saying, "Don't give me any Reiki. I don't want it." And so finally, last week, I just said, "You know what? This is not it's not healing. He's not making a big shift. It's very, very, very slow. So I'm just going to ask his higher self, and I'm just going to give it to him. And if he doesn't want it, the energy, positive energy, will go out to the world." And all of a sudden, last weekend, he wanted to come visit for a couple of hours on Friday, and he was back again on Saturday for 4 hours. And I was like, whoa, this is really interesting. So just going to keep doing that. So you made the switch. You'd been in the one marriage. You had your son. How old are your kids now, Kerri?
Almost 20, and today you're releasing this on the 17th, and that is my son's birthday, 20th
Okay.
birthday. And my other son is going on 17 in
Okay.
October.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. So what would you say for people who are in the corporate arena, excuse me, who are feeling that they have this calling inside? What would you say is going to be the best way for them to step into something completely different, and yet their authentic calling and purpose?
Well, I think the first thing is to get a coach or get a mentor or get somebody who's already walked the path
Yeah.
to navigate you through all the little places you can get stuck.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of little landmines when you start to break out of what you've been doing. that got you some measure of feeling good about yourself, and going into a whole nother thing feels very awkward, and your ego gets triggered, and you feel like people are, it triggers anything you have about like being talked about or not being perfect, and people's opinions of you and validation issues. Like any of that is going to get triggered as you make a jump to follow your heart calling.
Right.
And you can also have trouble like finding your truth in the middle of all the conditioning of other people's expectations that you've probably been filling so far, and ignoring your own desires. A lot of people come to me and they say, I don't even know who I am anymore. Like I've been so long doing the thing that other people needed me to do that I can't even remember who I am or what I'm passionate about. I honestly don't know. And so we do a lot of work together to start stripping away. It's sort of like peeling off the onion layers.
Yep.
There's this great quote by Leonard Cohen about, the crack is where the light gets in. There's a song that he has.
Yeah.
And I love that, except I would even posit the crack is where the light comes out. Like the crust is covering up the light, like the crust being the conditioning, the choices you've made throughout the years that weren't really true for you, but you did it because people expected you to, and then you didn't want to lose their love, so you did it anyway.
Yep.
You went against yourself. Every time you go against yourself, more crust comes on there and it covers it up.
Yeah.
So I help people break the crust off.
Well, I think your expertise, my expertise, our expertise is as coaches is to help people to see past that and just find that one little spark that's going to really be true to them, and then help keep blowing on that spark gently until it is a freaking flame that's blazing brightly. One of my colleagues is actually a sculptor, Linda Meurs, out in Salt Spring Island. Hey, Lynn. And she does beautiful work. And basically what she's doing is she's connecting with, if it's a stone or if it's a brass piece, but particularly when it's stone, connecting with what's within it and then peeling off the unnecessary, Michelangelo, to reveal the soul of the art piece within. And she does some beautiful, beautiful work. So totally a concept I am in connection with. So tell me about the first book that you wrote. How did that get started?
Well, so it was within the first year of me leaving my former relationship. So a 20-year relationship. I left it, spent about 6 months being bad. That's my plan. And then I found a spiritual teacher. I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm going to stop being bad now. But I didn't want to go back to psychotherapy. I was like, I'm not doing that again. There's no way I'm walking back into that. So it's something different. I'm happy. Just anything but that. And so I found this yogi teacher with hair down to his hips that did vinyasa class to Led Zeppelin. And I was like, that works. That's all right. I can totally hang with that. And that led to my shamanic teacher. And as I started working with my shamanic teacher in my first, it was like a 9-month program, within the first couple of weeks, I got this message. And the message was, start documenting your journey. Write a book. And I was like, write a book? I don't want to write about this. No, do it now. And it was really clear. And then I heard the voice say, you're charting the course out of madness. I'm charting the course out of madness. I was like, well, that's a really important job. I better do that. So I started writing this book as I went along in my healing. And I just wrote like from my heart, like everything I was going through in that moment, where I was in my development, on my path, exactly transparently as I was feeling and thinking, and revealing myself, for example, being man obsessed. I was completely man obsessed. Like I just wanted another man to fill the spot of the husband that I left. Like I was so obsessed. So I was very transparent about that in that book. And as I wrote that book over the course of 2 years, I kept trying to finish.
Oh, sorry. It looks like it's.
Okay. I can
stop for a moment there. So.
So the title, my internet's unstable now. My title was Awakening to Me, One Woman's Journey to Self-Love.
Right.
And I thought, okay, when I get to self-love, I can stop the book. So I kept thinking, I'm there. I can stop the book. It's done. And I would try to wrap it up. And then the next day, something else would happen. And I go, oh, man, I got to put that in the book. I don't want to do this book anymore. But I just kept doing it. And then at some point, around about June 2014, all of a sudden I got this message, wrap it up, we're done. Wrap after 2 years. And then it said, yeah, you're going to do all the graphics, get everything done in a week. And I was like, in a week? So I did 7 paintings, like 7 drawings for the book. I did the cover. I produced the PDF for the Kindle. I produced the print book. I got it all uploaded to Amazon and self-published everything. And I sat down in my bath that night and went, why the heck did I have to do that so quick?
Mm-hmm.
And I look on my phone and the social media, and there is this competition. The deadline is the next day, and for the Indie Spiritual Book Awards competition. And so I'm like, well, there you go. So I entered it and I won best in category. So
Woohoo!
it's like, after all that time.
Everything happens for a reason, right?
Seriously. And that person that ran that competition became a really big ally of mine. So it was important.
Yeah. Well, it's certainly, I hear you when you're talking about the journey and how long it takes. I mean, my book was basically about 2 years from start to finish. I had the manuscript written in about 9 months, but then it was, everything else from there on was just a fraction of the work, getting it proofed and edited and proofed and uploaded and all of the rest of those pieces to get it into print and get it on Amazon. But I think that the reason that it hadn't launched earlier was because I was actually meant to win a Woman of Inspiration award for the mentorship work I've been doing and working with groups of women first, and have a little bit more of a platform of influence before I actually launched it on Amazon, because that was in September, that awards ceremony. And then November 1st, my book launched overnight. It hit bestseller status. So that was thanks to lovely friends like yourself, members of the EBC, who are very collaborative in terms of helping support other authors and transformational agents, socially conscious entrepreneurs coming together. But I think that had it been the other way around, had I launched it when I planned to, which was around International Women's Day earlier in the year, it wouldn't have had the same impact. I did go to speak at a it was called the Fearless Women's Summit, and
Yes,
that was
I heard about that.
500 people, excuse me, and that was in March. And at the time I booked that spot, I thought that my book would be ready. So yeah, she said, would you like a table? Absolutely. So now I had a table and I had nothing to put on.
Except you.
Except me. So I mean, I did have pre-orders for my book, about 80 books out of that session. I didn't even have the book there. So that was an added impetus for me. Like, I got to get it finished. Like, people have paid me for this now. I got to get it finished. And that just sort of added momentum, but it also did add pressure as well. So while we're talking about the book, typically Words, Women, and Wisdom, The Modern Art of Confident Conversations is my book. I typically just run a short video about that. And I'm just going to see if I can share this quickly, and we'll just let this run. Here we go. Is that showing on the screen?
It is.
Ladies, a new book is on the horizon. Words, Women, and Wisdom, The Modern Art of Confident Conversations. This new book is for women ready to rediscover their inner confidence, take a stand for themselves in life and business by using more powerful language. Words are so powerful and have already changed history. On October 5th, the New York Times published a story detailing decades of allegations of sexual harassment against film producer Harvey Weinstein. And numerous women in the entertainment industry found the courage to go public, banding together with a powerful voice that change is long overdue. Even Oprah Winfrey, television network icon, gave a rousing speech at the Golden Globe Awards in January. The media has showcased the Time's Up Legal Defense Fund. The Me Too movement is flourishing and all signaling it's time for women's equality and change. I believe it's time to give women the verbal agility to create more confident conversations. Words, Women and Wisdom, The Modern Art of Confident Conversations is the book which provides practical approaches for women to ask for what we really want and receive our request. Hello, I'm Yvonne Silver, certified executive coach and senior HR professional, seasoned in business. I teach women to flourish in business by using more confident language to help empower and engage others. This book is the result of over 35 years of my career, professional career, working in 4 different countries. I've interviewed over 6,000 people in my career for job interviews, executive coaching, for sales and consulting conversations. I've listened to hundreds of women in particular who are looking for a better way to collaborate. They're looking to be asking for what they really want and heard and validated, especially in business. And women often earn less than men for doing exactly the same job. It's 2018. It's time for change. The Modern Art of Confident Conversations explores words we use at home, at work, words that trip us up, elevate us, and encourage us, and when no words are even required. It is about how to leverage the power of words in a positive, in a collaborative and impactful way. Now I work with women entrepreneurs and leaders who are empowering other women and leading through mentorship programs and my coaching, public speaking, interviews, and writing. I'm passionate about women's equality. Why? I grew up in England in a house with a flow of negative comments from my father, which destroyed my mum's dignity until she became an empty shell of the vibrant woman she'd once been, belittled by constant criticism and questioning of her abilities. Through my own life journey and supporting hundreds of female clients, I've discovered critical words to ask to get what we really want collaboratively. I know there are critical links between our language, our behavior, our mindset, and our success in life. Words from a song can replay in our heads for hours, and poetry can bring a lump in our throats. I've combined my insights with interviews from influential women, sharing their pearls of wisdom, supplemented with research and reference studies from established scholars. Women are rising up. It's time for women to be heard. Let's use more powerful, positive language and join the rising tide of change. This book is for you, a woman looking to the future, ready to embrace significant positive changes in your life by using more confident language. Eliminate those words that drain your power, add words that energize and invigorate, and shift from ordinary to extraordinary. Just one word can change your life. I believe every woman needs their own copy of this powerful book. It's time for action and time for change. Order and reserve your own copy of Words, Women and Wisdom today.
There we go.
Ladies, a new book is on the horizon. Words.
There we go. It's interesting. I've certainly leveraged that promotional videos. That was obviously last year's launch. So many times. It's been huge, and
It's a great video.
Yeah, I think it's a great video too.
Great video and good cover and everything.
Thank you. It's yeah, it's interesting because with the work that I'm doing now, I mean, certainly having book circles is a great way to introduce some of the concepts. And then with some of my other work, wisdom circles and retreats, it's a great opportunity to expand and dig deeper into having those more confident conversations. So back to you and this new book. So what were some of your big learnings writing the second wave? What was coming up at that point in time for you?
Well, I didn't know I was going to write this book. And, you know, February, I got the download, you're writing a new book. I am? Yes, it's going to be published in July. And I'm looking in February, I'm like, oh, that's not very much time. How's that going to happen? Because my other books took a lot longer to write. And yeah, it was like, you're going to write this book and it's going to be called The Second Wave. And then I didn't know what that was either. I was like, what is that? So I went and looked online and I saw Dolores Cannon's link. And then I was like, oh, I remember that because I remember hearing about that before. And I had this friend who loved Dolores Cannon's books and would try to get me to read them. I would get putting the book over to me and say, why don't you read this book, Kerri? Because you're into all this stuff. I think you would love this book. And then I would try to read the book and I couldn't read it. Like it was too dense or something happened for me and I couldn't get into the material. I just think it wasn't my time to read that book and I still haven't gone back to it. But I just thought, you know, I can't, like, I'm not going to be able to read this book. But what happened was as I started channeling, I was like, okay, well, so I'm going to be channeling something related to this. She's talking about the 3 waves of volunteers. The interesting thing about her work is that she has this modality. She passed away last year or the year before, but she has this modality where it's called quantum healing hypnosis technique. And it brings a person down into this level of consciousness where they access their superconscious or their subconscious, like their soul consciousness. And that is the very wise part of us. And she was able to bring people to that state. They started talking about the second wave, the first wave, the third wave. And she's like, what is this? So she started actually interviewing different people as they were under in this QHHT state about the waves of volunteers and collecting data on it. So she actually researched for thousands of people and collected data, which is in her book, right. The 3 waves of volunteers. So I was like, okay, this is cool because I have experienced that hypnosis technique. Actually, I've experienced it, so I knew what it was like. I was like, okay, there's something to this because I definitely felt abducted during my ceremony, during my my QHHT session. I felt like something happened because I disappeared or something. I don't know. It's a strange process you go through when you do it. It's a really deep hypnosis, so you feel like you lost some time. Like something happened and you lost time, but then something really profound happened that you don't exactly remember. It's sort of like that. So it takes a lot of trust working with your practitioner because it's sort of like that. It gives you this weird feeling, but it's very healing. And so I started just channeling meaning I channel all the time. So when I'm working with a client or I'm in a group session with my students, I will just channel guidance, meaning that I just kind of open up and I don't edit what's coming out. I just allow it to flow out. And it's usually really profound what goes out and everybody's shocked, including me. So I did that with the writing this time. I just kind of let it all come out without blocking it and just sort of allowed it without reading it. On the screen, just typed and even tried not to look at the words as they were being typed, just sort of allowed my fingers to type because I know how to type, you know, I know how to. So it was actually a really interesting process. And it leveraged my personal experiences. You know, my guide, White Eagle, leveraged my personal experiences in the book to bring a lot of the information forward. There were things that I'd already experienced, most of it, but then there were things that I had no idea that, you know, I'm like, I'm not even sure. I, Kerri, don't know that this is true, but this is what's coming through and it feels right to me. And when I share it with other people, they cry or they go, oh my God, you know, so it's that kind of thing. I had a lot of trust for the information that was coming through because I've been doing this long enough with clients and students that I know that it's accurate. So it's really interesting. Yeah, it was a really different process than my first book, which was much more processing, like much more me processing my experience from my own mind. This was not that at all. Like it was just all flow. So it's pretty interesting, the content that came out. Oh, you're on mute.
Just unmuting there. So with the book, you talk about, you know, white eagle expressed through my muse and daughter. So white eagle is the spirit of who?
White eagle is the ascended master who works with rainbow light DNA activation.
Okay.
And I've been interacting with white eagle for a lot of my life without realizing that I was.
Yeah.
So I don't really pretend to understand how it works, except to know that white eagle seems to be able to speak to many different people in their consciousness and interact with many different people, because there's lots of people that have experiences of having conversations with white eagle, and especially people that are working with me now, like they have conversations with white eagle. So apparently white eagle can do anything white eagle wants, and has a lot of conversations with people in their meditation time and in their dreams. And how it showed up for me was a really profound experience. I was trying to reconnect with my Cherokee ancestry, and I was not able to do that in the third dimension because my ancestor had changed her name because she could pass for white. So the connection to her and to the Cherokee roles is broken. We're not sure where she fits in. And, you know, markers in your blood are not that predictable or reliable yet. They're getting better, like on ancestry.com or something like that. But it's still not 100% a way to navigate that pathway in, right? So I thought I could probably meet a shaman because I did all this other work, and I thought on the fifth dimension, I bet I could get connected. You know, in other dimensions beyond the veil, I bet I could get connected. So I went to the Cherokee village in the Smoky Mountains, and I asked around, you know, because I thought this is the only place I know to go. I'm sure there's better places, but I didn't know what they were. So I just went and I was like, hey, can I have some help? The first year I went asking for help, I didn't get any help. But the second year I went asking for help, I got connected with somebody who was a temporary, doing a temporary exhibit, and he offered to help me. And he said, I'll meet you in the parking lot when we're done. And I said, okay. So I was with my boys. And so we turned around, we start walking to the parking lot. And all of a sudden I felt this energy, like this ball of energy, like a softball size, just come in, like literally smash it, like smack in through the back of my head, right where my neck meets my skull, which I now know is called the mouth of God. It's where your ancestors can come back through you. Like it's your portal to your ancestors. So that led to like years of healing work with this Cherokee shaman who like was a medicine man, and like I felt his profound grief. Like, I mean, he was like here, it's as if I was him, and feeling all the grief of the Trail of Tears and watching everybody like collapse on the trail and die, and feeling the grief of like the loss of my land and my people and my tribe and my culture and like the whole thing. Like, I mean, so much grief that like, it's not mine. Like I didn't have, I mean, I had reasons to grieve, but not like that level of grief. Wow. And I spent years like just processing like all of this grief and these experiences. And I thought this must be like a past life or something like that. Like, why would I be feeling all this? It doesn't make sense. And I was working with healers on it. I mean, I was going through the four winds when I was processing all of this, and it was amazing. So years of work on it. And then I found out, you know, through a medicine journey a couple days before I published this book, oh, that was, you know, that was basically this energy of white eagle that was integrating into my being. And not just white eagle, but like this whole native feeling, you know, like this ancestry and these native feelings. I was actually working in my own body to heal the because I'm in a Caucasian body, right? I'm in a body of a settler, you know, so I was actually in my own body working to heal the divide between my native ancestry and this Irish English ancestry that were at odds with each other. And so that's kind of what happened to me on which has been really crazy to explain, right? Because people that haven't had this kind of experience just go, what are you talking about? Like, that doesn't make any sense. But when you've experienced something like this, you just have to go with that because it's more real than any other thing. I mean, it's so incredible.
You just know, you know, much like I said, my hands are tingling. I'm supposed to hear this message. I think that we could probably talk for hours.
Totally.
And yet, just being, you know, conscious of our listeners' time as well, because, you know, it's lunchtime, right? You have so many learnings and so much to share with the listeners. I think that you had kindly said that you would share something with them, a copy of your Reinvent Yourself ebook, and there was something else that you were wanting to share with them too.
Yeah, so I have a Reinvent Yourself ebook, which is what I used to reinvent myself after that 20 years of other life, and then the new life that I now have. So I explained the process of how does that work. And also, I have a meditation that's called Receive 3 Flames from People You Admire. This process is about, you know, receiving, like when you see somebody out in the world that inspires you and you love what they're doing and you just wish you had that. So this is like, you actually go and ask that person etherically for like some of that flame of that thing that you really admire. So like I really admire Oprah. So I went to Oprah and I said, can I have some of that flame etherically, right? And so I got a little bit of that flame and then I integrated it into my being with me, like in my perfect vibration.
Oh, I have to listen to this. It sounds amazing.
So here's the secret behind the whole thing is that you already are, like if you admire somebody for something, you already have it, but you just don't know you have it. So this is just a way for your mind to process and make the connection. Oh, that thing I like, I have that. It's just a psychological thing, but it really works. You feel like you have it.
It sounds amazing. So just in our last couple of minutes, where do people go to learn more about you, to pick up these beautiful gifts? Where do they go?
Yeah, so they go to kerrihummingbird.com, which is KERRI, hummingbird.com /claim your destiny.
Okay, kerrihummingbird.com /claim your destiny.
Yes, and do it if you want to have fun in your life instead of settling for boring.
So if you've been sitting on this call in your office, eating your lunch, thinking, oh, shoot, this has opened up a can of worms now because I'm really not enjoying my job. I'm not that happy. I know I have a bigger purpose. Then I highly encourage you to connect. Look at what Kerri's been up to in the world. She's really reinvented herself, truly. It sounds like a completely different world from your corporate life.
Totally.
So kerrihummingbird.com.
The executive ladies call me their unicorn in their pocket. They keep me hidden, but magic happens. So
love it.
Rainbow unicorn.
And if you are intrigued to learn more about the work that I'm doing as well, certainly you can find my book, Words, Women, and Wisdom, The Modern Art of Confident Conversations. The video is on my website at Words, Women, and Wisdom, and it's spelled out AND.com. And the book is on Amazon. You can pick that up, or if you're here in Calgary, come find me. Usually my events are listed online. So I'm at the Petroleum Club next Tuesday. On Tuesday the 17th rather, and then also hosting my Bold Women Leaders event, which is for women who are wanting to expand and have more confident conversations, and that's in Calgary on October 9th, again listed on my website, wordswomenandwisdom.com. So thank you, beautiful Kerri, for sharing some of your gifts. I know we're not finished this conversation. I look forward to keeping in touch and hearing more, and I do one of Kerri's firewalks. It's on my wish list. I just have to try and figure out how to fit it in in the next few months. So thank you and have a great day. And hey, stay tuned for the next edition of the Words, Women and Wisdom show, posted on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Have a wonderful week, everybody. Bye for now.